Every time a mass shooting occurs in America, and they occur fairly frequently, questions of gun laws are raised. Following the shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida on February the 14th, the push for tighter gun regulations in America is stronger than ever. The law that allows Americans to get, carry, and use guns is called the Second Amendment, or more commonly, the right to bear arms. In this video, I'll try to put the Second Amendment simply, though this one's going to be tricky. So, from the top. When America won freedom from the British, the US Constitution was put together. A constitution is a set of rules or principles that dictate how a community should be governed. And since America was a brand new independent country, they wrote a brand new independent constitution. And it became ratified, or kind of signed and legally binding, in 1788. As the US government was finding its feet, amendments, additions or alterations, began to be added to the Constitution. The Second Amendment was added to the Constitution in 1791, and it read, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." If you're confused by this wording, well, you're not the only one. In fact, the wording of the Second Amendment has been confusing people since its creation. Some people argue that the right of the people to bear arms, i.e. to get and use weapons, means that the government should not control the individual's attempt to bear arms. However, the well-regulated militia meaning an army made from the community, could suggest that the Second Amendment means that the local authorities for each state should not be stopped from bearing arms. In other words, there's debate over whether the Second Amendment means individual rights to bear arms or a state's rights to control who bears arms, known as the collective rights theory. It wasn't until 2008 that the US Supreme Court, the court with the most authority in America, declared that the Second Amendment did indeed mean the individual rights to bear arms, when the case of the District of Columbia versus Heller overthrew a handgun ban in Washington, D.C. As it stands at the time of filming, this is still the agreed meaning of the Second Amendment. However, gun laws do differ between states, making this issue still more complicated. As an example, I'll go through the gun laws of Florida. In Florida, you aren't allowed to openly carry a gun. You also need a license to carry a concealed weapon publicly. Other than that, there's very few restrictions. You don't need a license to buy a gun, there's no register of gun owners, there's no limit to how much ammunition you can buy at once, you aren't required to tell the police of any guns that you own, and there are absolutely no background checks that you must undergo before buying a weapon. This lack of restrictions has been heavily criticised. There is a huge amount of pressure from protesters on the Florida senators that support the NRA, the National Rifle Association, to either leave the Senate or withdraw support from the NRA. While there are many public protests going on in Florida and around America, the main source of the pressure is actually coming from the surviving students of the school shooting. The students have taken to Twitter, appeared on national TV, and are organising a mass walkout on March 24th to promote their #neveragain campaign and force Florida to rethink their attitude to gun laws. However, gun culture is so ingrained in Florida and wider America that there is a reason gun laws are not tighter now. People often talk about how the UK and Australia tightened gun laws after their own school shootings. However, because gun culture is such a huge part of American culture, not many people think that this is a realistic solution for America. Instead, let's look at how Switzerland handles gun culture. In Switzerland, almost every home has a gun, but the supply of ammunition is very strictly controlled. You have to have a license to buy guns, be over 18 and with a completely clean criminal record, and must put extensive personal details down on a register. Compared to the US, there were 3.01 gun-related deaths per 100,000 people in Switzerland to America's 10.54. There are clear solutions to America's frequent school shootings, and there is no better time to implement them than now. The question remains about the best way to work with the gun culture in America. The students of Douglas High School are doing everything they can to push for the protection of students and the regulation of gun control in Florida, and their efforts are truly incredible. I've linked some of their Twitter profiles below where you can follow their marches and protests. So, that's the Second Amendment put as simply as possible, but of course there is a much bigger picture. There are useful links in the description box if you want to read more, and I strongly encourage that you do. If you like this video and want to see more, drop me a like and a comment and subscribe to keep up with politics put simply.